last week we were leaving by a little bit of time to switch computers. He's back there juggling computers again. So I asked him if we needed some more, and he said no. So again, the man you'll see next week will be here in person. So you get to see him live and in person. So that'll be another gift for you. Levi, you ready? You sure? I see the head nodding.
I think that every father should memorize the monologue from the movie Taken. If you remember Taken, it's got Liam Neeson in it, and this crossover like kidnaps his daughter, but they have no idea who they're messing with. They don't realize that they kidnapped the daughter of a person who was in special forces and who was a government agent. He's kind of a James Bond type of 007. But really, he's more dangerous than 007. He's more skilled. And this guy is going to get back his daughter. So he gets the criminals on the phone because he's good. You know, he knows what he's doing. And he has this monologue that I think would be excellent for every father to memorize the first time a guy comes over to your house and wants to date your daughter. And I think what you do is you bring in the young man and you set him down like in a kitchen chair. And you say, you just sit here for a moment. And then you walk in behind him and kind of bend over his shoulder. And then that whispering voice, try to do your best Liam Neeson imitation and just repeat this word for word. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have is a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my daughter go now, that will be the end of it. I will not look for you. But if you don't, I'll find you and I will kill you. If that doesn't get his attention, nothing will. But that sets a tone. It's a joke, yes. But in that movie, Liam Neeson ends up protecting his daughter and she never comes to harm. And they're getting ready to sell her into the sex trade. Nothing happens to his daughter. I think that's the way we have to be with family. We have to make up our mind that these things are not going to happen. We're not going to let societal pressure tell us that we can't be good fathers. We need to go to extremes like he does in that movie to protect the virtue of his daughter. If you remember, the church is likened to the bride of Christ and is made glorious by the washing of the word. Christ is there to give himself a radiant and glorious church. He wants to retain all the beauty and majesty of the church, which is likened to women. Now, this all comes down to two key words in today's passage. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 6 is the primary text. And I'm not going to be doing an exposition of these verses. I'm just going to point out two very simple things. And it's based on what we call a prepositional phrase. Do you know what prepositional phrase? In 8th grade, I had this teacher named Mrs. Watt, and she made us memorize these prepositions to a song that I believe, if I remember right, it was on page like 39 in our textbook. So we'd get out our English book, and we'd have to turn to this page, and there was this list of these same prepositions that I did over 35 years ago. Am I getting that old now? And I still remember them. Now, I've written them down just to make sure I don't flub up. But I had to, this is the same list from all those years ago. So I'd like to do it for you. Aboard, about, above, across, after, against, along, amid, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, between, beyond, but, by, down, during, except, for, from, in, and to, like, near, of, off, on, over, past, since, through, throughout, to, toward, under, underneath, until, with, within, without, according to, beside, of. I can hear you now, everyone clapping for me. It sticks with me because we set it to music. Now, preposition is the most important part of speech because it shows the relationships between the other parts of speech. Yes, you have nouns. Yes, you have verbs because the nouns are doing something. But what is happening to what else? It's the relationship between the words. Prepositions are very important. You see, you get the effect, which can be the key part in interpretation and understanding what you're talking about. And imagine this in biblical interpretation. A lot of the disagreements of the denominations they're based around trying to understand these prepositional relationships. Many of the differences between the Pentecostal church and, say, the Baptist church can be understood by what falls upon a person versus what indwells in a believer. In Roman Catholicism, they speak of mortal and venial sins. The latter is forgivable. The other puts you outside of the church. You better know the difference because you don't want to be outside the church, you see. They believe that if you're outside the church, there's no salvation. It's a big deal, see. Reformed churches don't believe that Jesus died for all, but instead only for the elect. Little words with big consequences. Nowhere will you see a prepositional phrase play out larger in history than what we're going to see today, chapter 3. Okay, so let's turn to Genesis 3. I'll be looking at the first verse, and I want you to look for the key phrase. The key phrase that brings down humanity. That is the reason for all the sin that's in the world, and explains the role and relationship of men. Okay? Words that have a relationship between two people. Where is it? Okay. Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say you should not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. With her. That's the key phrase. Who does all the talking in this episode that we read? He does all the talking, but where's Adam at? He's with her. When we read through the rest of the text, and I'm going to save us a little time today, Adam blames Eve in verse 12. If it comes out, they're hiding from him. Why are they hiding? Because now they feel a sense of shame that they never felt before. This is unnatural already in the creation. So in verse 12, Adam blames Eve. And then Eve blames the serpent in verse 13. They are all certainly liable to be blamed to some extent, but it was Adam who was with her in verse 6 that receives the blame for the fall of humanity. If I were to take you to a couple of key verses, we can nail this down because the New Testament clarifies a lot of theology in the Old Testament. In Romans chapter 5, verse 12, it says, therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. So we want to make double sure who we're talking about here. So let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 22. It says, for as in Adam, all die. Okay, we have a name now. It's Adam. Why does Adam get the blame? Because of his role of protector and provider. You see, this idea of protector and provider is from the beginning. It's before sin comes into the human race. And it was the expected role of men, even from the very beginning. Not during the fall did things change in this way. Because some people are going to argue, they're going to say, well, men and women were equal in roles, and then what happened was sin came into existence and it changed everything. And then once you become a Christian and come back into the church, what will happen is that you restore the equality of roles. You have equality in humanity. You have equality before the cross. But you always had a different role, and that different role went all the way to the beginning. Even Jesus said he came to serve the Father, and he came to do the will of the Father. Yes, if Jesus and the Father were to play a game of basketball, I think it would come out as a tie. But it's very possible that they would play different positions on the basketball court. There's a difference in role. And if God doesn't have a problem with it, we shouldn't have a problem with that either. Okay? So this is really a message that is trying to help us under the biblical view of being complementary. Also, the theology of the Bible makes it very clear that man was to be protector and provider from the beginning. So let's go to the New Testament and let's get more detail upon this passage in Genesis. There's going to be an argument made by the Apostle Paul, and he's going to make an argument for what we call creation order. Who was created first? Adam. Where did Eve come from? From him. And it says from his side. I believe in King James it says his rib. It's saying that man was created first, and then woman is of man. And she specifically was created on a secondary basis, and she was to be a helper to Adam. 1 Timothy 2:11. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. 1 Timothy 2:12. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. The word teach there, used in the context of Timothy and Titus, which I think would be a good context for that. The word teach is used a few other times. So what type of teaching is Paul talking about so far? Well, he's talking to Timothy, who is raising up elders, and those elders are supposed to be ones who teach. And then he is told to watch his teaching. I think we can safely say that the teaching that he's talking about here is that type of teaching that the leadership of the church has. And when the gospel's being proclaimed, it's supposed to be the role of men to do this. Not because women aren't capable, but it's the role of men to be the protectors of the flock. Look here in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13. It says, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. He didn't like Adam being off to the side. He was not supposed to just be with her. But Paul expected him specifically, I think, to be in front of her. Why was Eve doing all the talking? Eve should have never been in that position to begin with. We can't just let her take care of it. She's willing to. Lots of women, very competent, can do a very admirable job. But even the weakest man, spiritually and physically, needs to step up into this role. I mean, you may even lose. You may even get beat up. You might even go through something worse than that. You may have your name slandered. You may lose your job. That's cancel culture. That's what we're going through today. That's your responsibility to lead. Your wife may be smarter than you. Maybe maybe you know that. Maybe she does handle the checking account, and that's fine. But this is a moral issue. This is when Joshua, if you remember, Joshua came out and said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord.